name is Dale Wood.
And our first question is, please tell us your name, oh wait, never mind, and how you came to live in Clear Lake.
I was born here in Clear Lake. When I was born, I live where I live right now. I've never moved.
So the next question is, how long have you lived here? Entire life?
My entire life. I'll be 71 in October.
Did you have family members who also lived here?
Did what?
Did you also have family members who also lived here?
Yes. I had grandparents and cousins and uncles and aunts and all kinds of relatives that lived in Clear Lake.
What did your parents do for a living?
My dad farmed, and then he done a lot of other jobs around the community. He run this Clear Lake Livestock Market, which was south of Clear Lake. Was a sales barn where they sold cattle. Then he worked for Dick Junkins, hauling machinery all over northern Wisconsin. He'd go to the cities and pick it up and bring it here, and farmers would buy it, and he'd help, you know. Besides farming, he worked out too, because that's the way you did it. You had a few cows and you had part-time jobs.
What about Mom?
She done painting, you know, for people, and she worked at, was Friday Canning Company in Richmond, and she had some little jobs like that too, where she was a mother and a part-time worker when she didn't have to cook for us.
Okay, the next question is the home you grew up in still there, and where it was?
The house that we grew up in is not there, but the place I grew up in is where I live now.
Was it a farm?
Yes.
Did you have modern day conveniences?
As far as for the house, when I was a kid, we didn't have an indoor bathroom. We had to go outside, and then we did get a bathroom, and we added on the house a little bit, but the bathroom was in the basement, but we didn't have a dryer. My mom hung the clothes out or hung them in the basement to dry, and she had an old Ringer type wash machine. It wasn't regular. My great grandma and grandpa lived in Clear Lake, and they never had any indoor water. They had a windmill that brought the water up. They used a wood cook stove to cook. They didn't have a gas or electric stove. They always had to start the wood stove if they wanted to fry eggs or bake, and she'd bake, and you'd never know that she didn't. They milked by hand and put it in cans, milk cans, and took it to, you know, the milk truck would come and get it and take it to the Clear Lake Creamery. And when I was a little kid, we had milk cans also. We didn't have a bulk tank for a while, and we had a cooler that we put it in, but my grandma and grandpa put it in their water tank where they pumped cold water to get it to cool down. So.
Just a random question. What was your favorite dessert that Grandma made for you?
Bismarck's.
Next one. Did you have family traditions?
As far as what?
Like anything that you guys did special? Like for Christmas or Easter? Is there something that you guys did?
We always got together for Christmas and had chicken soup. Homemade chicken soup. And
Okay. Did you have a garden?
yeah, we had a garden. And you're talking about the food. Most of the food that we ate was either from a garden, or there was a strawberry patch here in town that they'd go pick strawberries when the strawberries were ripe, and then they'd can them, and you know, they did. My mom canned a lot of fruits and vegetables, and so we had stuff to eat all year round. And then we'd take one of our animals and butcher it, and something that you're gonna think is a little strange, we used to eat a lot of squirrels in the fall when, I know the one year, my brother shot 99 squirrels and we ate every one of them. There wasn't as many geese and stuff, but you'd hope to get a goose, you know, for something special, and, you know, we ate some meat from our farm.
What chores did you do?
What chores? I helped milk cows, and at that time, we did not have a barn cleaner, so you had to wheel the manure and try and get it up the board and dump it in the manure spreader without falling over and dumping it over, so you had to pick it up again, and you'd fed calves and cleaned, and, you know, you helped with the hay. And
What was your least favorite chore?
trying to get up with the wheelbarrow full of manure and dump it without dumping it.
What was your favorite one?
My favorite one was, my dad had bought when I was real small, the neighbors had a thrash machine and thrashed together, and then my dad bought a combine. It was a pull-type combine, but it only had a 5-foot head, so you had to go around. Well, then he started combining for all the neighbors, and it was fun then because neighbors were neighbors and everybody helped everybody. And usually where you were baling hay that day or where you were combining, that lady would make you supper or dinner and treats, and, you know, I mean, it was a fun thing where everybody worked together and had fun. You had fun doing it.
Yeah.
What medical service did you have available to you?
There was a clinic in Amory where you could go but you didn't seem to get sick. I mean, I broke enough bones that I broke my arm twice, I broke my ribs, and so I did have a few times I had to go to the doctor.
Okay, how has Clear Lake changed over the years, including businesses, physical like trees, houses, fields, lakes, old school buildings, railroad tracks, and more?
Well, one of the things back in the early 70s, the Dutch elm disease started, and I was a member of the Clear Lake JCs, and I can go around Clear Lake and point out a whole bunch of the trees, the maple trees that we planted in different yards, so that there was trees in Clear Lake. And as far as the businesses, my Uncle Lester used to own where Jim Anderson is now. It was an Ellis Chalmers dealer and sold Ellis Chalmers equipment. And in 1959, my dad bought his first tractor from him. That was this little CA tractor that only could pull the 2-bottom plow. And we thought that was one of the greatest things to have that 2-bottom plow. And then where Paulson's Chiropractic is, my Uncle Merle owned that, and he had Woods Plumbing and Heating, so he did plumbing and heating out of there, which they're not there now. And my Uncle Merle also made the trailer court where it is today. So I cut the hay on that. There used to be a farm there and a field, and I cut the hay there for the last time before they started bulldozing to level it off. Where the hill is on the back, that's how high the hill was that he took down to level off to make the trailer court, and everybody thought he was crazy, but now there's a lot of people living there. The railroad tracks used to come through, and most of the stuff that they brought to the feed mills, which there was 2 feed mills, one that's in where Speakeasy has their thing, where Johnson Garment was. Johnson Garment added on the front, but on the back part, that was a feed mill where we'd bring cob corn in and dump it, they'd grind it, bag it up, and bring it back. And then over towards AFP and where the village has their garage there, that garage used to be a milk plant where they brought some milk in and and separated it from the different farmers. And there was a feed mill between there also. And when I was a kid, Land O'Lakes was in there, and they were making Model-Ac for babies and sending it all over the world, and they would put it in train cars. And then when some would get dented or something was wrong, my dad got to take that home, and we had to open all the little cans and pour them, and we fed them to our pigs and had good pig feed. But it was a lot of work to open all them cans. And then down a little farther, there was a coal bin where they brought coal in because people were burning coal in their stoves to heat their houses and stuff. And the machinery that came in for the two machine dealers came in, most of it all came in by rail there. So then they'd go unload them cars with the machinery, so that was, you know. And then there was a pea factory where Oxbow is, where Paulson Brothers is, where you brought peas and beans in, and they canned the peas and the beans there for people to eat, the farmers did. So there's a lot of things that I've seen have changed, and like I've said, the sales barn down there, a lot of people don't believe that there was a sales barn there, and the farmers would bring their cattle in, and people that wanted to buy them would buy them, or there was a guy that would buy them to take to the market. And you talk about the way some of the things have changed. That was not a lake on both sides of the road there. It was just a wet area, because when my dad run the sales barn, sometimes people bring cattle early and he'd turn them out there in the pasture, and I'd have to go get them. There was not standing water, only if you got a big rain. I mean, it was fenced off on both sides of the roads there. There wasn't standing water like there is today, which, you know, I think of that every time I drive by. I would, you know, that's something that has changed. Yeah.
Did you meet Burley Grimes or Gaylord and Nelson?
Not personally, but the first Earth Day that the Clear Lake School celebrated, I was there for that. That was back in the 70s when they had it at what's, I call it the old high school now. We had it in that gym, and we had things that, you know, for Earth Day and to celebrate Earth Day back then.
Were there any violent crimes committed in the area?
Not that I can really think of. There was little things, but not like there is today all over.
Yeah, like car accidents, was there like a lot of those when you were younger, or?
There was a couple car accidents that some kids got killed. Two boys got killed by the park, crossing 63, and one girl got killed on the first curve going to Reeve. Their car went off the ditch. The one by the park, a car hit them, and they were kids about my age.
What were your interests or hobbies?
Working hard. And, you know, you'd go to the sports, you'd back the kids that were in different things. I was in football because I was busy on the farm. I didn't do a whole lot, and then my dad says, well, go out for football if you want, and so I went out for football. You know, we went hunting and did that thing.
Okay. Do you have any children, wives, or anything like that?
Do I have any children?
Children, wife?
Yes, I have a wife, and I met her on a blind date. But it was a year later before I had enough nerve to go and ask her out again, and then we got married. And we've got 4 great kids, and then I have 10 real great grandkids.
Where did you go shopping at?
Most of the shopping you did around Clear Lake. You stayed at home. There used to be 2 lumber yards in Clear Lake, one where the bank is and one where the city hall and library is. That used to be a lumber yard, so you got your lumber there. Plus, I used to cut logs and saw a lot of lumber myself. I mean, I didn't have the sawmill, but I'd get somebody to saw it for me, so when I wanted to build something, I had some lumber. And like I said, the feed mills were there. You didn't put as much fertilizer and stuff on as you do today. And there was 3 grocery stores. And one thing that was interesting back then, most of them grocery stores, you could bring your beef or your pork in and they would cut it up for you, and there wasn't a locker plant, it was a grocery store. Plus then they'd buy some from you and sell it to the local people, which, nowadays they don't do that. There's some locker plants, but not in Clear Lake. So, I mean, that's, you shop locally.
Yeah.
What events happened in your area that you remember, like weather, wars, factories, holidays, parades, circuses, fairs, carnivals, music, dances?
In the 70s, there was a tornado that went through east of town here and done some damage. The Grace Lutheran Church got struck by lightning and burned. And I know Christmas Eve, Nielsen's store started on fire.
That's a great Christmas present.
And burnt. And there was a lot of people out of town and the firemen were short. So I helped them instead of we were going to my mom and dad's house for Christmas, and the fire was going and they needed help. And I always wanted to be a fireman, but living out in the country, they used to just blow the siren. Well, you couldn't hear it. They didn't have pagers like they do nowadays where you can get the page and go response. So I've helped the fire department a lot of times when there's a barn that burnt and they needed to move cattle. I would go help them, or sometimes when there was a big thing, I wasn't really a fireman, but I helped them. So.
Did you take any animals to the fair?
I took one animal my senior year, and I had the grand champion carcass.
Ooh.
And when my kids were old enough to go to the fair, I encouraged them, and they went to the fair with many, many things, and I don't know why they're still there, but there's about 45 trophies that my kids won at the fair. And I tried telling them, you gotta take your trophies home, and they says, we won them as a family, they need to stay as a family. And then Grandma gets to dust them off.
Okay, what else? What did you do for fun?
When I was a kid, most of the time, you worked, but then there was a lot of different businesses had softball teams where they played softball at different places. I know a lot of my uncles and stuff played in Forest. They played here in Clear Lake. So you'd go watch them on a Monday night or whatever night it was that you'd go watch them play softball or baseball. So that was kind of the highlight of going to watch people play softball.
Just going back to the fair thing, do you have any other grandchildren going to the fair, and do you like helping them and stuff like that?
I like helping anybody. I've helped a lot of people that weren't able to take animals or didn't own animals. had a girl that her dad died of cancer, and she lost her farm and wasn't able to, didn't have a place for her steer. She let, her uncle says, bring it to my place, but he didn't understand that you had to feed them feed, that you couldn't just put them out in the pasture, and her steer didn't do good, and she couldn't catch it when she wanted to lead it. So she came to me at the fair. I don't know, I was a fair board president for 15 years. Anyway, she came to me and says, so I understand you let kids keep animals at your place and show them at the fair. I got 1 year left and I'd like to show it, if I could. And I says, well, come and talk to me after the fair, because I was busy. And 2 weeks after the fair, the pagers went off, car versus tree. So the ambulance went there, and this girl had went off the road and hit the tree with her car. They airlifted her from the scene to the cities because she was really bad. She almost bled to death going to the cities. And I kept in contact with the mother because we had knew them, the parents. And she wasn't doing very good. She really didn't want to live because she was crushed from the waist down. She wasn't. So we had to weigh the steers in November. And I called the mother in October and I says, well, we got to get them steers weighed in. And she says, well, we're not sure she's going to live yet. You know, this was 2 months later. And I says, well, we have to weigh them steers in. I says, well, I'll weigh a couple in. And, you know, I could tell she was kind of upset, you know, she didn't, well, I weighed them in. And I called her and told her, well, I signed the papers and weighed in your steers. And she went and told her then that I weighed in them steers, and 2 weeks later, the doctor came up to her and says, what happened? And she said, well, what do you mean? Well, let's go talk to her. She changed, she wanted to live, she changed her whole life and was taking the medicine that she didn't want to take and was doing exercises that she wanted to do. And they asked her and she says, I'm going to show them steers at the Polk County Fair. I mean, she was so excited about that. Well, she was still in the hospital in the cities. And then finally in January, she couldn't stand it that she hadn't seen her steers yet. So she was getting better that the doctor says, well, you can take her out, but you have to bring her back. Well, she came and put her in a wheelchair, and we wheeled her up by the pen, and she laid her head on the gate. I hadn't separated her 2 steers out because, you know, I wasn't sure what was going on. They were with about 40 other steers. Well, they were over on the other side of the pen, so I was going to get in there and go over and chase them over so she could see them. She had laid her head on the gate and was kind of crying with excitement or whatever you want to call it. Them 2 steers came from the other side of the pen, one on each side of her, like gave her a kiss, like, come on, we're going to the fair. And you had to be there to see it. I wish we could have taped it because it's something that people, I mean, you had to be there to see it. I mean, it put tears in everybody's eyes when them 2 steers did that. Well, then she got better so she could come while her mom would bring her in a wheelchair, and I had put them in a separate pen, and they would feed them and talk to them, and she got them. So, well, then she was worried that she was still in a walker for a while. She says, well, what if I limp? I says, that's the least thing that you gotta worry about is limping. And she walked, she showed them, she got to sell, she did really good. And it, you know, to me, that was one of the great things that our family has done for this gal. So, any other question?
One that comes from me is, do you think Clear Lake is being more efficient now, or has it been more efficient in the past?
I think with what's going on in Clear Lake now, with Oxbow closing, it was more efficient because a lot of people that lived here worked there. I mean, I worked there for 10 years. And when they merged with this company out of New York, it was a bad thing. I mean, I know they were mad at me because when we were two companies, I would demo machines, and I was demoing a machine in California, and there was a guy from Australia that they were gonna send a machine, and that guy from Australia found out that I was a farmer. He got in our machine and wouldn't even go close to their machine. Well, they kept us apart. Our machine was about half the price of what their machine was. And they told us, well, our machine wasn't as good and, you know, wouldn't do as good picking. Well, they kept us apart. We got down to the end of the field, and I wasn't a jerk. I was just showing that I could keep up with them, picking just as good as and just as fast, and the peas were going to be just as good and not as. And we get to the end of the field, and their guy jumps out of his machine and says, "Okay, sucker, back off. You proved your point." Well, we were going to another field, and their machine was so big and heavy, they had to take so much stuff off. When they were driving it on the truck, they tipped it over and had to get a crane to pick it back up, and then it was damaged, so they couldn't do anymore. So the guys from New York got mad at me, and then when we merged, they fired me. So,
for relatives who may be watching this in the future, is there anything else you would like them to remember or know?
well, I hope they remember me and Mom. We've tried to do everything we can for them in the community, and I've been involved in a lot of things, whether some of them don't remember the army worms in the early 70s. We're here was getting into all our crops, and somehow I got it lined up to, well, then the whole county extension dumped it on me to make sure that everybody got sprayed. We sprayed out of the Amory Airport, and I had to haul water and stuff for them and do that and make sure it was lined up. And then in the 80s, when it was dry and we had to do a hay lift, somehow I got involved, and there again, I met a lot of people because they dumped the hay lift on me. And there was one time I was taking hay to a place. I was with a minister, and he says, "Back in, because the guy might start shooting at you." So I mean, these are the things that, you know, and we got him the hay, and the guy was okay. Another place, the vet had called me that the farmer was out of hay and his cows were starving. And my kids were with me. Rosie, your dad, was with me, and Justin was with me, and we took a pickup, because we download some at my place so that we got hay for emergencies. And we backed up to the barn, and they had the people from Iowa and Oklahoma and that would send groceries too. So we had, if they didn't have money to buy hay, they didn't have money to feed themselves. So my wife took the lady to the house with the groceries, and I started unloading the hay, and the guy says, "Oh, just unload them outside." And I says, "No, we'll put them in the barn, it might snow." Well, I wanted to be able to give it to the cows so that he fed the cows. And to this day, my kids still remember what we did. And the governor from Oklahoma, it was at our place, and we took her around to some people that could thank them cause a lot of it came from down there, and that was kinda a special thing too. And when they needed some hay in Oklahoma, down there, me and my family lined up to get some sent back down there, so.
Okay, I can assure you, Grandpa, I think everybody will remember you because you know a lot of people. Is there anything else you would like to share or talk about?
You got something?
You know that picture above on your fireplace?
Yeah,
That I think Grandma told me that was Roscoe Pico train.
yes.
You want to tell us about him? I think we got like 5 minutes left.
I met Roscoe P. Coltrane out at Dave Shireman's house one day. Dave invited me out there to be with him. So I've been involved in a lot of things. You know, I've been on the Wisconsin Association Fair Board, and there I had to be Dolly Parton's sister's bodyguard.
Ooh.
And they told me to help her get ready. Well, I wasn't gonna help her get dressed, so I sent Chris in to help my wife in to help her get dressed. So I mean, I've been that, and like, yeah, I met Roscoe, and I've met a lot of big people like that, you know, into different things, because at the Wisconsin Association of Fairs, we have nights where entertainment comes, so you can see if you wanna book them for your fair and that kind of thing. And so we, you know, and I've been involved with the Department of Agriculture at the national level. I've been on the county board, and I've been on the town board. I've done a few things, been around, and people still think that I'm on all these boards because they come and ask me questions. And right now, I'm the animal control officer. Because we had one that if somebody was mad at their neighbor and the dog was barking, they'd turn it in and they'd get a $200 charge for this guy coming out. And I haven't charged anybody, so they don't have to pay, because most of them are just a neighborly fight. And Friday, I had the best one I've ever had. A lady calls me and she says, I let my dogs out at 5 o'clock, and she's got 5 dogs. And when I opened the door to let them back in, 6 dogs came in. And I mean, she just wanted to know if I had got a call of anybody missing their dog. Well, I looked and looked, and she put it on Facebook, and the dog was a little over a mile from home. I went asking the neighbors, but I didn't ask the right one. And this dog was a companion dog for somebody that's sick. And we got it back to the owner, and it was lucky it didn't get hit on 63, because it crossed 63. And so, I mean, that's why I do what I do, because now somebody's got their dog back. And if we'd have took it over to Arnell, it would have cost them $300-400 to get the dog back. And this way, this lady was happy to keep it, and we found the owner.
Well, I suppose our time's up.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so Grandpa, this is Grandpa, or Dale, and I'm Rosewood,
And I'm Haley Gilbertson.
and thank you, Grandpa, for coming.
Are you still on?
Yes.
And she is related to me also.
Thank you, Grandpa.